If you're asking the young people to do things that is just to help you, but it's not a real leadership, they need a place at the table. They need to be part of your board.
Welcome to the Propel Podcast, inspiration and innovation to grow your church. I'm your host, Larry Witzel. Seventh-day Adventist churches grow differently, and our goal with this podcast is to offer practical training for effective evangelism in the Seventh-day Adventist ministry context. If you're enjoying the Propel Podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more valuable ministry content. And don't forget to share this with your ministry colleagues. It's an easy way to show your support for our mission of driving more effective church growth. You can find the YouTube channel at youtube.com/@propelconference. This episode features Cris Cazarine, who serves as Director of Young Adult and Campus Ministries for the Carolina Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, supporting young adults across North and South Carolina. With nearly 20 years of ministry and 7 years as a pastor, she focuses on leadership development, training, and major ministry events. Cris planted the Vine Seventh-day Adventist Church and later launched The Way online church to reach young adults digitally. She holds degrees from Southern Adventist University and Andrews University, and she's currently completing a Doctor of Ministry. In this presentation, Cris Cazarine explores one of the most important challenges facing the church today, helping young adults stay connected and engaged and thriving in their faith. Drawing from research, a ministry experience, and countless conversations with young adults, she challenges common assumptions about what younger generations are really looking for from the church. Rather than focusing on programs or styles or trends, she highlights the importance of meaningful relationships, belonging, mentorship, and authentic community. Cris shares practical insights into why so many young adults disconnect from church life and what churches can do to create environments where they feel valued, heard, and empowered. She also offers a compelling vision for involving young adults as active contributors and leaders rather than simply participants. Whether you're a pastor, church leader, parent, or mentor to young adults, this session is going to provide incredible perspective on building a church culture that helps the next generation grow in faith while remaining connected to the mission of the church. We're going to hear from Cris Cazarine in just a moment. Before we get to today's presentation, I want to give a special thanks to the sponsor of this episode, the Chesapeake Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. The Chesapeake Conference serves churches, schools, and communities across Maryland, Delaware, and portions of the surrounding region, supporting a vibrant network of ministries dedicated to sharing the hope of Jesus. Their mission is simple and clear: to reach the people of the Chesapeake region with the Christ-centered message of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. What I appreciate about the Chesapeake Conference is their commitment to equipping local churches and schools for ministry through evangelism, church planting, education, youth ministries, community outreach, and leadership development. They help create opportunities for people of all ages to grow in faith and to make a meaningful impact in their communities. You can learn more about their ministries, mission, and resources by visiting ccosda.org. For Chesapeake Conference of Seventh-day Adventist, ccosda.org. Okay, with that, let's go to Cris Cazarine sharing in the Church Revitalization Breakout Track of the 2026 Propel Conference, and her topic, Empowering Young Adults to Strengthen the Whole Church.
We as Seventh-day Adventists honestly had not done a good job in understanding. Basically, what we have done with young adults is we do a pretty good job with EEKS, okay? And then we think the young adult is youth 2.0. And that's where we get it wrong. A lot of the times when we're planning for youth, one side usually fits all. Okay, if you're going to do a field trip, if you're going to do Pathfinders, if you're going to do a program, usually fits. Once they are young adults, especially when they leave college, some of them won't go to college, but especially when they leave college, Let's say a 24-year-old graduating from college, one's getting married, one's getting a job, one's having kids, another one's going back home, another one. That one size does not fit all anymore. And we, as Seventh Adventists, we're like, hey, we gave you adventures, we gave you Pathfinders, we gave you church children's story. You are an adult now. You graduated. What young adults were for the boomers and the Gen X generation is very different from the millennials and from the Gen Z and the younger generation. And this is something that we need to be aware, not to be an excuse for them not to grow, but for us to understand and help them. So everything that I'm going to talk to you guys come from a few books, a few trainings, and a few experience. The first one, this is old. This is about 10 years old, but you probably all have heard of this. They gave to basically all pastors. Even though the research is old, the principle is still apply. And I highly recommend you guys, if you never read it, read to understand. Now, the other two resources, they are from 2026, and I highly recommend these two books. The Grow Young is youth. It's kind of like, what are we doing with the youth that is in the church all the way until they get over? This one is specific for young adults, and this one was published just last year. So this is not old resource. This is brand new resource. And they are excellent in talking about the transitions in the life of young adults. This one here is about churches that focus on the younger generations. And this is also research. And 6 of the churches that they researched are Seventh Adventist churches. So I thought this was very neat. What do? They put in practice what they learned here in Seventh Adventist churches. And now they're telling you what the results were. So I thought this was big exciting. Okay. With this one here, the research was done with Christian denominations in North America. None of them were Seventh Adventist, which is still okay to read it because they're not talking about doctrines. They're just talking about, like, I'm talking to young people and asking them why you're in this in church. So pretty much was a research. That's it. So the ideas I'm going to share with you, by the way, this would be a 6-part seminar. I try to summarize into 1 hour. One of the things that people, when they come to these seminars, the first thing that most of them are looking for, and they get very frustrated, is because this is not a how to do programs for young adults. Most people are like, I know what to do with youth. I know the programs. I know, like, we have the Pathfinders. Usually when we think of youth, we think of Pathfinders. But even if it's not only Pathfinders, we know what to do with it. Then it comes to young adults, we're like, please tell me what to do for young adults. And they're looking for a program. And what I have learned is that young adults are not looking for programs. Am I right or wrong for the young adults that are here? Okay. So this is not about how to start a program. Are programs okay? Yes, programs are okay. And I think we need to have some kind of program. But if we establish the foundation of what is important for young adults, when we come to think of programs, then we will know what to do. But the very important thing, do not think about the young adults as Youth 2.0, please. That's the main thing. A peanut is actually a pea, but we think it's a nut, and we focus on thinking that it's nuts when we think about nutrients and stuff like that. The young adults will do the same thing. The name is young adults. We focus on the young, and we forget they are adults now. Or we think they're just adults, and we completely say, you're done, goodbye. That's the mind, the paradigm shift that we need to make to be able to understand how to work with young adults. So what is the first thing that I did? Because I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm not a young adult. Yes, I know you notice. I actually have a young adult. My son is 32. So yes, I haven't been a young adult for about 20 years. And one of the things that I think we as pastors need to realize, even though in my brain I'm still 28, and sometimes I think and I throw tantrums just like a 28 or a 15-year-old. And like usually in our minds, we never get old, but we do. And like it or not, we're in a different generation. For me to understand that generation, I actually needed to ask them. And it's not just ask once, but be with them to really understand that. I remember when I was at Andrews, one of the young people raised their hands. I don't even remember which class was that, but he said something that I will never forget. It goes, you guys are giving us answers to questions we didn't ask. And that is stuck with me because I'm like, am I making plans? Am I leading church in a way that I'm thinking that's what they want, but that's not what they want, that's not what they ask, but I'm just assuming what it is. So the first thing that we need to do is understand the future of the church. This is from growing young. Things had changed a little bit, but basically what they realize is that we need to define reality, that 1 in every 2 young people, after 1 year after they graduate from high school, they leave church. 1 year after they graduate from high school. So by the time they got to college, they had already left. Their brain was already gone. We blame college and the parties and all of that. They were already not there by the time they got to college. Do you see what happened? So basically 50% are leaving. What I like about this research is that they decided not to focus on what was going wrong. They focus on what was going well. And this is what they teach. So I think that is really, really nice. This is not a youth problem. This is a church problem. Can we see that? What we need is a change because we don't want to just attendance. Because when the young people are young, at least in my reality, we're moving, not talking about the bigger cities, okay? But in the smaller towns, the smaller churches, I go there and I'm usually the youngest person. You find the older, you find some, it used to be, how many here have heard, oh, they left when they went to college, but when they had kids, they came back. How many of you have heard of that? You know what is a major difference from before and now? Before, life transitions, culture was pretty much the same. They would graduate from high school, they either would get a job or go to a technical school or university, get married, have kids, and come back to church. How is life of young adults today? Once they graduate, well, first of all, high school. Some go to college, some go to work, some get a tech job, some get married, some have kids, some live with parents, some take a gap year. So it's all over the place. We don't have like that normal trajectory like we used to have before. So by the time they are 25, if they left church from 19 through 24, those were 5-year gap. Where is the gap going now? When they kind of get their lives together again, how old are they now? 35 approximately. So now we don't have a gap of 5 years, we have a gap of 15 years. If they lived 19 years, and a lot of this time they were babies, in the church, and now they live 15 years out of the church, they almost have the equal balance with church and unchurched. And church no longer makes sense to them. Sometimes the grandparents will bring the kids, but not the actual parents anymore. Do you see what's happening with this gap? So if we lose the young people, we don't just lose attendance, we lose future leaders. What does the church is going to look like if we continue in this trajectory? What is it going to be? Future of the mission, future of the families. So the gap is growing. We have declining affiliation, declining attendance, and rising disconnection. And this disconnection it's almost like a completely different world. Not only we have problems in communication, when I do seminars that are like 2, 3 or them, like several parts, I bring some funny videos. There is this the trust fall thing. So they're giving instruction and the person's supposed to fall backwards and the girl falls forward and on like generational gap, like when the communication is not doing well and things like that. Anyways, we had a problem communication period because communication is not easy, guys. When we speak the same language and when we have the same culture is hard. Now, we have a generation like never before. The introduction of so much technology and now with AI, the difference between the generations, the gap is so gigantic that made communication even harder. So there's a lot of things that is not helping us, but don't get discouraged. I promise you I'm going to come with good news in a little bit. Young adults are not rejecting God as much as they are disconnected from church. And that is important. It means that the problem is not belief, it's experience. Now, besides that, something that is in one side is hopeful and the other side it's a huge opportunity that can be very overwhelming. It's this idea that they are not rejecting God. If you go on social media, which I am social media, I believe by the way, I have not even introduced myself. My name is Cris. I work for the Carolina Conference. I'm the young adult director for the Carolina Conference. I am a pastor, and I was a pastor for the first 4 years I was there, and now I'm the young adult director. One of the first things that I did, I planted a church for young adults. And I'm the kind of person that I'm basically shameless. I'm not embarrassed to come and talk to people. And if I'm going to plant a church for young adults, I need to understand from the young adults. And what I started and learning about social media because that's where they are and so on. And one of the things that I started doing interviews with strangers in the street, just coming to them and start talking to them. I share a lot of that in my previous presentation about social media. Highly recommend you guys to watch because one thing connects to the other. Social media evangelism with empowering young adults, those two things do go together. But anyways, so talking to young adults, I realize they're not rejecting God. Actually, they are really seeking for a higher power. The negative thing is they are on social media. If I'm looking for something spiritual, on social media, you have everything. When you come home from work, you work really hard and you're hungry. You're very hungry. You open the fridge and what do? You eat whatever's in front of you. Now I am seeking, I'm looking for this higher power. Sometimes I don't even understand that I'm looking for, but something is empty and I'm looking for. I am disconnected from church community. For some reason, they're disconnected. Okay? Now, what do I have available for me? The temple of TikTok. So what is positive is that they are looking for God. What is negative is because what they're finding is overwhelming, is crazy, many times very wrong. I was very frustrated not too long ago. But I do a lot of social media. My views are not that great. That's not the point. But it's sometimes you work so hard, you take hours and hours doing and 5 people sees it. It's frustrating. And one day I'm scrolling and because my social media is regarding the spiritual thing, sometimes the algorithm will send me what the algorithm thinks is spiritual. So it sent me something about a witch. And she was giving a lesson on how the foundation of everything, and she had icons of all of the different religions, and Jesus was just one of them in the middle there. Okay? Yeah. Frustrating wasn't seeing her. Frustrating was that she had billions of views, and one of the likes, it's from my sister. I'm the oldest of 5. One of my sisters, I gave her Bible study. She's a Covenant Adventist today. Praise the Lord. This one is the 4th one. And she's completely against anything religious. Everything that I do, what I am, everything is wrong and is bad. But she followed the witch. Yeah. But that also tells us that we have an opportunity. Why is this connected to the previous presentation that I did early on social media? because it's how you present to them. We're going to open the door or close the door. The principles of what we're going to talk about in this presentation also applies for that presentation. So this is not the whole story. So far, I gave you guys very negative information. This is not the whole story. What I really appreciate about this book here is that instead of focusing on only what is going wrong and telling you all of this bad news, they focus, okay, this is what's going wrong. We are losing all of the young people, but we found churches that are doing really well with young people. And they decided to follow these churches for, I think it was 3 years with interviews and all of that, and find ways in common with those churches to find out what are they doing that is keeping the young people in the churches. And I think that's what we need to focus on. What is the good news? And this, for my surprise, is what they found out that it's not important. And I am sure you guys are going to be as surprised as I was. So they figured out that a contemporary worship service is not necessary. I'll tell you guys what is important a little bit. Let me just go down this list. So they realized that no, it doesn't have to be a contemporary worship style. Is a contemporary worship style bad? Oh, no, it's not that it's bad, but it's not exactly necessary. Then a big budget. Oh, our church never goes forward because we don't have enough money. They never give us money. Let me tell you guys, I've been to different countries. I've been to United States. I've been to big and small. And shouldn't we have a good budget? Yes. Shouldn't we focus on our young people? Yes, absolutely. Don't think that I'm saying don't give money. What I'm saying is, if the heart is in the right place, even in a low budget, you can still do it, okay? Doesn't have to be a trendy location. Only downtown is going to work. Only a popular denomination, which usually is the non-denominational, right? They found churches, the more traditional church like Presbyterian, like the Baptist, like they're more organized, traditional, in small areas, like farm areas, that very few people that did well with young people. And they also found a modern building. Do we want something nice and clean and decent where people feel safe to sit down? Absolutely. Doesn't have to be fancy. They realize, no, you don't. Precise size. Oh, it's just that church plant that just started, that is on fire, or that mega church that has the money to be able to do the fancy and the crazy programs and all of that. And they realize, no, it's not. It's like the age, which connect to this as well. Like sometimes they think was the younger or the older. They realize, no. Off the chart, cool conscious, the pastor with the beanie hat and the leather jeans and, that kind of stuff. They realize, not really. This one, the Adventists love this one, right? Oh, they're growing down the street just because they're watering down the teachings. Let me tell you. Young people said, no, I want churches that live what they preach. In the book, you'll see all of the answers and stuff like that, better for you guys to understand. I'm just giving a summarization. A hierarchy came in ministry program. You think, oh, they're going to have hyperinteresting. They're like, we're tired of this. It's too nice. Sometimes they're exhausted of programs. I actually interviewed a young man who, I think 17, 18 years old. And he would go to this church in the middle of nowhere. He would drive half an hour to go to this church. He would leave town to go to this small Presbyterian church in the middle of like a farmland that wasn't even his neighborhood, because there was one man in there that loved him, mentored him, and cared for him. Let me tell you. And in rooms, sometimes I am doing a training seminar in a church. I ask the young people, this is really for the older generation, but I need you there because there is going to be some dynamics. There's going to be some questions that if you answer, they're going to believe more than if I tell them, okay? And I ask them, if you go to this church that all they have is a old organ, hymnals, not that fancy, but there's somebody there that loves you, would you stay there? And they said, 100%. What if it's the opposite? They have the lights and the fog machine, and they have the beautiful concert-style contemporary song, but you walk in and you walk out and nobody noticed you. Which one would you go to? And they, believe it or not, once in a while we feel like going to a concert. But the daily needs, the daily community that they need, the fulfillment, the love, the care, they go to that place that they're seen, that they're loved. So if there's anything that goes above everything else, is create a relationship with these young people. Now, relationship costs something. It's sacrificial. When I look at Jesus, and we have books on discipleship, our pastors, we read books, we gave to our elders, we gave to our church, we read the books, we go to training, we talk about it, discipleship. But let's talk about simple discipleship. What did Jesus do? They slept together, they ate together, they spent time together. They grew in relationship because they spent time together. Today, we're like this. I have 5 minutes for you. Are your problems solved yet? We have no time, we have no patience, and we don't understand what is priority. Our life is busy. I know. Our life is really busy. But and I told this in my previous class for those that were in that class, confessing my sins here. So there was a big event coming up, and I'm editing a video, and I'm in a rush. Sometimes when I have too many things in my head, my brain is like, don't interrupt me, don't talk to me, my poor husband. By the way, this is my husband. And I am very focused on finishing what I had to do. I have type A personality, I need to get things done, and I'm editing a video, and I receive a text from somebody that says, Pastor, I need to talk. Something happened and I need to talk. And I'm like, no, I'm going to ignore this. I'm going to tell her I don't have the time because I need to finish this. And the Holy Spirit tells me, why are you editing this video? Why are you doing social media evangelist? Why are you a pastor? So if that person interrupts your sermon crafts, if that person is interrupting our life, that your sermon may not be attended this week, what are we here for? If it's not to serve the people, to be there when they need, why are we here? But the number one thing that we're concerned is like, I have a checklist that I have to check, and we don't have time for people. So the shift, not just young adult ministry issue, this is a church culture issue. This is for the entire church. And I'm not saying this is a criticism. I'm saying this is something that I had to learn myself. I mean, I just confessed to you what I did here. And this wasn't just one time. Obviously, God and the Holy Spirit are working with me constantly. This is where many of us get stuck. We care deeply for young adults, for it, right? I don't think you would be here if you didn't care. I do believe you do care. But we don't always stop to ask what it feels like to be them in our church. And this is the shift. Most of churches think we need a better young adult ministry, but what if that's not the real issue? What if it's not about ministry, but it's about the kind of church young adults experience when they walk in? It's not ministry. Stop thinking about making a ministry for young adults. They are adults already. They still need guidance. They still need care. But what if the entire church is the ministry? So reframing the goal, young adults are not the problem. They are the solution. When young adults engage, the whole church changes. Energy, leadership changes, relationship changes. What revitalization actually looks like, it's where we put young adults in leadership, relationship, mission, and energy. This one here gets a little, the next part I'm going to get into, it's a little tricky. When we talk about bringing life back to the church, we often think more about programs, more events. I already talked about that. Let me see here. I go back to my notes just to make sure I don't forget anything. So let me just look here. But that's not where life comes from. It comes from relationships. started seeing the young adults as the next leaders of the church. They're still here. So actually, I think it needs to start even before they are young adults, is when they're youth. One thing that is quite interesting, when I first became Adventist, one of the first things I did was to become a missionary, first in Amazon, and then I went to work in the middle of Tennessee. And in this area where I was working, there was a Mennonite community. And in this Mennonite community, we made friends with the Mennonites. Quite interesting experience. But one thing that I learned from them was this. Their rule for when the boys could help the parents, the father, was when he could hold a hammer. And the hammer was this little. So you would see 3-4-year-old following the dad and learning how they would make the frame, but it's just one part of the barn, the top. They were specific just in one thing that they did. The difference in culture is this, and this is something that we need to pay attention, even in our houses and even in our churches. A young girl, a little 3-4-year-old girl, you're cooking in the kitchen, she's like, Mommy, can I help you? Can I help you? No, you're going to get hurt. Mommy, kids, 5 years old. Mommy, can I help you? No, you're going to make a mess. 7 years old. Mommy, can I help you? Maybe, but be careful with this, be careful with that. But always that, no, this is not the time. They are 13, and you're begging them to help you, and they don't want to help you. Duh. Maybe at home, as parents, we have learned how to do that better, right? Because now we have videos on TikTok and the parents are letting the kids make a mess and cook. But not at the church. That we have not learned. For you to be an assistant deacon, by the time you're flaming, am I right or wrong? Maybe let's have better churches here. There are a lot of good and bad things in our cultures. There's a lot of negative things about the Adventist church in South America, but one thing that is very positive. You have 18 years old that are elders in our church, Pathfinder directors. So that's one side that I believe that South America is doing better than we are doing here. So the book, they use the term keychain leadership, and I think it's quite interesting the way that they use. But what they're talking about with keys, it's like empowering, like I'm passing on the key to this younger person. But then we have different attitudes, okay? So what we want is to be a keychain leader with real responsibilities. Let me explain to you the difference in real leadership and not real leadership. Talking to young people, what they shared with me was this, and this was hard for me, okay? Up to a certain age, this is okay. After that, it becomes more problematic. If you only ask me to read scriptures or to take out the garbage, you make plans about programs for us, but I'm not included. I feel used. Let that sink in. If you're asking the young people to do things that is just to help you, but it's not a real leadership, they need a place at the table. They need to be part of your board. They need to, when you're doing events for them, they need to be included in a planning. And when they give opinions, and if they come with things that are insane that you know you can't do it, negotiate with them. Talk with them. See how you can find something in between. Don't let pride say, I want this event because it's going to make me look good. What is the point of the event? It's to reach the young people. Even if it's not as good as you think it's supposed to be, it's for them. It's not for you. Young people are saying, I have jobs that I have hundreds of times more responsibility than I will ever have. Like my church, the only thing, the key that they give me is maybe for the janitorial closet. Nothing else. They don't trust them. So this is one problem. The second problem that we have is this. And this one here, I know I'm going to open a can of worms. So we had a nominated committee every year, right? Every year, or maybe every 2 years. I think it's a little better, but this is what we do. Who can we put in these positions? Right? Then we're like, we need to involve these young people because they're not interested in God's things and they are not interested in the church and they have no commitment. So these young persons did agree to be the Sabbath school teacher for something, or maybe you're more courageous and you put somebody to be the head deacon and you're super excited. And then we throw them in a position, we give them no training, no mentorship, they get discouraged, they stop coming, and they are the problem. Do we do that? How many churches have a training for those that are starting new positions? Do we have a guide? Do we have a manual? Besides telling them to take do you understand what I mean? Do you do that with the business outside of the church? And I think one of the problem is we rotate people so fast with denominating committees every year. People don't have the time to actually learn what they're doing, to be able to mentor somebody else, to be able to train the next generation. So one of the things that I wish I had the time to develop, but I'm inspiring you. Please do it. Help me. And we all do it. We need to rotate a little less. We need to actually have job descriptions. Be clear. One of the things that Gen Zs and millennials hate is not knowing what they're supposed to do, their expectations. But we're mad because they're not fulfilling our expectations that we never told them the expectation. We need more adults to understand the importance of mentorship and to volunteer to mentorship. But we as casters need to make sure we're putting safe people to mentor. Because the biggest challenge that we have is that the people that want to mentor, they don't really want to mentor. What they want to do is, this is my way, and this is the only right way, and they need to learn my way because otherwise this church is going to burn. So they're not safe people. A safe person, I'm going to give you guys a dialogue that I had with, I'm going to have to make a PG because it was not PG, but my hairstylist, I met her, I found her through social media. I saw the way that she did hair and I liked, and I went to her. A young lady, 27 years old. And she had not a clue that I was a pastor at the beginning. And she started oversharing everything that she does. And I'm talking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And out of 5 words, 6 were the F-bomb. And she had not a clue that I was a pastor. But I didn't want to make her feel bad. So I just kept listening to her. And at some point, I said that I have a podcast. And she said she wanted to be my podcast. But I realized, and she was, okay, so in the first podcast, she wanted to share with me all of her traumas with being raised as Catholic, and her father hates the Catholic Church, and she loves talking bad about the Catholic Church. So that's what she wanted to share, her experience with religion, okay? Recently, I had a conversation with her where the conversation was about literally like details of this going out and hooking up and stuff like that. And the pastor space is like, the point to share this, we need to understand where they are. Do I agree with the stuff that she's doing? Absolutely not. Do I want to smack her in the face and say, wake up? Absolutely. Is she ready for that? She's not. So you need to put somebody, there's something else that we do. All of you here agree with me with the way that I acted with this lady that is not Seventh-day Adventist, right? You guys are all good with what I did, right? But what if I said that she's raised in Seventh-day Adventist church? What would be your reaction now? Let's be honest. What would be your reaction? We would say she should know better. She's raised Seventh-day Adventist. And we treat them differently. They were raised in the church. They know Sabbath school. Their parents raised them there. They don't know because they don't want to know. Or they're doing this knowing. So in the people's mind is they're sinning more than the person outside. That's the biggest mistake we do. Because we think, and I did that, okay? I have 3 kids. My story is kind of crazy. I have 3 kids. When I came to the church, I had 2 of them. And I went from being in a nightclub, listening to rap and Eminem and dancing and being all wild and crazy. The next day I come home and I tell my kids, ooh, we are Seventh-day Adventists now, we're going to church, and now you have to accept all of this. So my life is a little crazy, but I went from completely worldly life to completely legalistic inside the church. So I made all of the mistakes that you guys can imagine. I made it, okay? So this is from learning experience. My biggest mistake was because they were raised a bit, well, my oldest one was 10, my middle was 6, and then the other one was born later. But basically they were raised from 10 on in a church, okay? We think that they are an extension of our brain. And we think that because we know, they know. Because you got it, they got it. They don't. They don't. Unfortunately, the struggles of the kids inside the church are the same struggle the kids outside the church. And we want them to know better. We do. We want them to act better. We do, and I get it. But we need to treat them just like we would somebody from the outside. And when I say that, is with the same mercy. Because let me tell you, when I come to the church and I share a testimony and I tell them that I was pregnant, I was doing sex, drugs, and alcohol at 13 years old. I was pregnant when I was 16 years old. I came to know God when I was 26, and everybody, praise the Lord. Wow, what an amazing story. If a kid from the church said the same story, we cut them from the church book. We kick them out because pregnancy seems to be like contagious. And they're like, no, but if you allow a pregnant girl to stay in church, you don't discipline them, then other girls are going to get pregnant. They're not that stupid. They're not. Let me tell you, seeing that young person that got pregnant and had a child and all of the consequences will scare all of the other girls. I'm not saying support what she did. I'm not saying, hey, go live, have sex, get pregnant. That's not what I'm saying. I think we all understand that part, right? I've been praying to God. By the way, I'm doing my part as far as trying to become friends with her. So my husband and I went out with her and her boyfriend. At the time, she was still dating this guy, and we had breakfast with them. I was in contact with them. I did offer her to do a Bible study because in the podcast, she started talking about hell. And I was like, I think you would love to understand what hell is actually like from what she was commenting. Then afterwards, I was like, do you want to study to understand a little more about that, what you were talking about? She goes, no. She cut me off, so she was not ready. Continue treating her the same way. So it's been 3 years that I'm doing my hair with her. Recently, she got pregnant. And there wasn't those questions about doing an abortion, not doing an abortion. And we had a deep and good conversation that I could see that I was finally getting something through to her because of she trusts me now. And she said, I don't like religion, but if I ever want to look for a church, it's going to be where you are. So there's a connection, and that's what we're looking for. It's been 3 years of hearing the craziest things. Some people are faster. I was sharing the previous presentation of some people that I met through social media. There are people that were much faster. Within a month, they liked what they saw. They started talking to me, had a Bible study, and became Seventh-day Adventists. With her, it's been 3 long years, but isn't it what we're supposed to be doing? On this side here, so this one here is what we wanted to be as leaders and to give them to be real leaders, okay? We wanted to be that leader, they call kitchen leader, that is giving real responsibilities to empower them. Is there now any job that you do, I don't care if you're a pastor or whatever other jobs that we have here inside this room, there is nothing worse than be asked to do your job and not empower you to do your job. And these are these other examples here. The keyless leader. I want you to clean this room. You're supposed to vacuum the room, I give you no vacuum. Very frustrating. How are you going to do your job? We do that at church. The key hoarding. Every church has one of those. That person that wants to control all of the musicians in the church. Everything has to go through that person. They hoard all the positions because that's how they find their values. And as pastors, we need to be able to filter and guide and go through all of that. The key loaning. That is the person. I give you the job, but I might micromanage everything you're doing. And the first mistake you hack, give them the joy back. We give authority, but we don't give authority. We micromanage. Now, I like to talk about both sides. One side is what we as pastors, as leaders, as supporting the leader, we need to understand what we're doing wrong. But I'm not blind to what is happening to the young people. I am with them enough to know that those that say, oh, but the church never gives me a chance, you give them a chance and they don't do anything. They love talking and they don't do anything. I know that those are real. When I say we need to put ourselves in their shoes to understand what their life is like, their generation it's a lot more discouraged than most of our generation. There's some younger ones here, but the older ones. For an example, let's talk about the older generation. Boomers. What in Gen X, to a certain extent, the proudest thing that you had was, I work hard to put a roof over my family's head. Right? You work hard because that is what you're looking forward. Millennials and Gen Zs especially, they're going to work hard and they're never going to be able to afford a home. Does anybody here remember when houses were $100,000? Nice, decent houses. Forget it, never get to buy it, so why look at it, right? So life is very discouraging now. Oh, they never last more than a year in a job. That's true. But they also don't put up with all of the abuses that boomers sometimes had to put up with. Do I agree with how much they change jobs and how flaky they are and how irresponsible they are? No. Do we need to deal with those that are in the basement playing video game and smoking weed and they're like 25, 30-year-old? Is that a problem? It is a problem and it is real. But we do have those that are serious and we're losing them because we're generalizing and putting all of them in the same bucket with the rest of those that are not interested. Sometimes even that lazy bottle that's just in the basement playing video game, if somebody cared for them to understand where is that coming from, maybe that would be a chance for them as well. I think the bulk of this conversation here is more know them, spend time with them before we just completely disregard them because they're never really interested. What happens when we give them keys? They take ownership. Now the attitude is different. I'm not just the kid that is taking out the garbage. Now I help plan for this. The attitude is completely different. There's growth. And I'm not going to say that every time there is commitment, the commitment looks different. In the past, I would come to you and say, would you be the Sabbath school teacher for the next year? And you're super excited because you wanted that position and you like that authority and all of that kind of stuff. Now they're like, oh yeah, no, that's a very long commitment. So, have you guys heard of FOMO, right? I don't know what FOMO is. I learned a new word. FOBO. Do you guys know what FOBO is? FOBO, F-O-B-O. FOBO is different. Fear of a better option. They're not committing. Because what if there's something better? But that is with everything. A better girlfriend, a better clothes, a better car, a better job, a better everything. I hate that. It makes our life as pastors difficult. But that's the reality. So you need to learn to adapt. You no longer ask them, can you commit for the year? You ask them for a commitment for the month. Much harder for you. But you balance. You have some older leaders. You have some younger leaders. You train the older leaders. This is how they are. How can we adapt to them instead of making them adapt to us? Because that's what we do. We're making the young people and the new converts to adapt to the old people because it's their way or the highway. Can we start teaching the older ones? Ye help it. I know, it's like, forget what's in there. But we need to start talking. We need to start talking, you know? And as we show good results, we might be able to convince some without lowering the principles. One of the biggest challenges that I have when I'm invited to go do this training at churches, the training is how to teach them how to empower youth and young adult or how to keep youth and young adult. Depends, the title depends on the church and so on. But when they hear that there is a female pastor coming to talk about how to work with youth and young adults, the first thing, what do you think they think? There comes that liberal pastor trying to lower principles. She's going to bring rock and roll to our churches. When young adults leave, they stay. And when they stay, the whole church gets revitalized. People are like, so you're just focusing on youth and young adult? How about the older people? Are they not important? Because they are important, we're focused on young adult, because the research showed that when we all focus on the young people, the entire church revitalized. We need each other. We need the older need the young. We all need each other. It's not just about the young adult ministry. It's about our ministry in the church. Sheet number 2 is to build real relationships. I think we already touched a lot on that. People are not projects. Don't only waste time with them because you have an agenda. First of all, it's not a waste of time. Second of all, love them independent if they are going to respond the way you want it or not. Do we have an agenda? I have an agenda. Do you have an agenda? We all have an agenda. The problem is not having an agenda. I do have an agenda. My agenda is I want this young person to come closer to Jesus, or to get to know Jesus, or to come closer to Jesus. But my agenda cannot be above that person that is in front of me. What is happening to the person, getting to know the person, what their needs are. Because I had a lot of experience, like when my husband and I went to be missionaries in Amazon, I was at the peak of my crazy legalism phase. Okay, legalistic phase. And if you ate meat, you're not going to heaven. And the people where we went, they had choose 3 sources of food, right? It was flour, fish, and coffee. Guess what I wanted to put there by it? Am I doing Jesus? What am I doing here? Sometimes what you think is important, because in my mind at the time, if you ate wrong, your mind is foggy and you don't have a connection with God. So in my mind, I'm introducing Christ to that. But I was wrong. And praise the Lord that one day I woke up. And that's what we have to be careful with our agendas. Listen, good preaching, they can find it anywhere. Anywhere, Dax. And I am sorry, but if they go online, they're going to find much better preacher than we all are. We think that the most important thing we do is it's preach a good sermon, prepare for 40 hours just for that one sermon. And I'm sorry, there's going to be a lot better preachers than you. ChatGPT preaches better than you. They cannot download meaningful relationships. They need you to care for them. Why do they leave? Because they feel judged, they feel disconnected, they feel lack of belonging, they feel alone in a multitude. They're not leaving because of bad music. Is it nice to have good music? Are we always that's the goal, to have everything in excellency? Absolutely. But they're not leaving because of bad music. They're not leaving because the sermon wasn't strong enough. Do we want to do well with our sermons? Please don't think that I am taking that away. Most of the time they leave because of experience, not content. They feel judged, disconnected. They feel that they don't belong. And once someone feels that way for a while, they don't argue anymore. Let me tell you, I went to a church that the pastor was sharing with me. First of all, I was super excited about that church, because from the church that I visited, they had 0 young adults. He had about 20 young adults and active in the church. And I stood down with him and I'm like, what are you doing? Because this is fantastic. And he started just telling me all of the bad things that is happening there, because the older generation thinks that the music's too loud. The younger generation are upset because it's not loud. By the way, I was there. It wasn't loud. It was normal. And I do have a low tolerance because I lost hearing on this side here. So sometimes it depends on the pitch. It's really hard for me. So I do pay attention to this. I think I like contemporary music, but it has to be well done. Otherwise, it does hurt. But I was there and it was really nice. Anyways, and he started giving me all of these negative things that is happening and how much the young people are complaining. And I was like, you're complaining? Yes. Praise the Lord. You was funny. Praise the Lord. They're complaining. That's a good sign. When you don't like something, what do? You don't like a restaurant. What do? Let me tell you, this is research. This is not me coming out of nowhere. This is research. Before I became a dentist, I used to work for hospitality. I worked for a hotel, and then I worked for a bank. Bank of America back then was big in hospitality. Okay? Research shows that from the complaints that we receive, that is like 2 or 3% of the customers. Majority of the people, they just completely disconnect. They never go back. They are not going to waste their time arguing with you. They're gone. This idea of out of the complaints and the trolls, it's more social media. They're more vocal there, okay? But the really personalized, majority of them, they don't complain. Young people will leave your church before you know there is a problem. Before you even notice that they were not happy. You're seeing them smiling there every Sabbath. All of a sudden, you never see them again. They were having problems. But they felt like it does not matter. I will make no changes here. Why waste my time? That's how they feel. That's why the connection with them before this happened is that important. I'm going to go through this very quickly because I did want to give you guys time to ask questions. They're asking identity questions. Who am I? Where do I belong? What matter? That's what they're asking. And this is where ministry begins. Is sitting down with them and help them with this. Listen to them first. Sometimes their questions are the real questions behind a bunch of other comments. You give time instead of, as soon as they said, I want to know this, ask them, tell me more. What do you mean by this? And the first idea that you had, it had nothing to do with what they were really talking about. If the church does not answer these questions, who do you think is going to answer? Culture will. Culture answers this all the time. And in different medias, social media, and I was going to say television, but young people don't watch television. Create a warm church. Warm is the new cool. I do an online church Sabbath afternoon. It's at 4 o'clock Eastern time. If you guys ever wanted to join me, to have you. It's a 15-minute sermon, and then it's conversations with young people, okay? It's almost like a chat room. But these young people said that the opposite of negativity is not positivity, it's warmth. So instead of coming to the person with a nice, positive phrase, ask them, you want to go for an ice cream? When they're sad, when they're going to do something. Warmth is more important than anything. What keeps that? It's relationships. That's what is going to keep them. Ship number 4 is focus on them every department. Men's ministry. You have a man that is the leader. Have a young person being mentored by that person. Every single department have the young people involved. This is where revitalization comes real. Young adults are not a side ministry. It's not one of the ministry. They are part of everything. I've been focusing a lot on social media, so I have the online church, I have leadership development, like training the churches, and social media in general. And one of the things that I do with social media is give a young adult a voice. So I have a podcast just to listen to that. That's all I'm doing. I'm listening. A lot of the church members get frustrated because they're like, but you should share the gospel at the end. I was like, that is not the point for this podcast. I do have other medias that I share the gospel, but this one is for them to be heard. That's the whole point. If I agree, if I disagree, at that point, it doesn't matter. And if you listen to the other presentation that I did, just that understanding that I was a safe person that listened and listened and listened and listened without giving them the solutions and the agenda, they're opening up to me now. Simple starting points. Give one young adult a role. Build one relationship. Create one space to listen in your context. So these are principles. How are you going to do it? You will see what works in our context. The goal is a church where young adults stay. Final thoughts. Everyone rises when we focus on young adults.
One thing that stood out to me about Chris's presentation was the reminder that people stay where they feel known, valued, and connected. As I listened, I found myself asking whether our churches are creating enough space for young adults to belong and contribute and and grow into the leaders that God is calling them to be. What about you? What's something that Cris Cazarine said that you can apply in your own ministry? Something that struck you, something that can be implemented in your own ministry context even this week. Reflection is so powerful, and it's really important to take a few minutes right now to think about what you just heard in order to lock it in. This isn't just filling time. It's not just passing time as you drive or wherever you're listening to this. The purpose of the Propel podcast is to actually give you some food. And now it's time to reflect. What's the big idea for you? What stood out to you from Chris's message? What's a big idea that you can implement even this week? So when the episode ends, please pause for 5 or 10 minutes and let your mind wander, reflecting on what you just heard. It's a simple but powerful practice that can lead to breakthroughs in your own ministry. Well, that's it for this episode. We'd love to hear from you. You can send an email to podcast@propelconference.org. And please mark your calendar for next year's Propel Conference, coming to Gladstone, Oregon, April 25 to 28, 2027. Early bird registration is now open at propelconference.org. Special thanks to Cris Cazarine for speaking at the 2026 Propel Conference, and to the Chesapeake Conference of Seventh-day Adventists for sponsoring this episode. This has been the Propel Podcast, inspiration and innovation to grow your church. The Propel Podcast is produced by the Sermon View crew, and the event recording services were provided by Adventist Learning Community. I'm Larry Witzel, wishing you God's richest blessing in your own evangelistic journey. Please join us again next time for another episode of the Propel Podcast.